most dealerships are, wildly uninsured given the nature of the litigious environment that we live in today, right? Somebody drives off, they hit a school bus, you lose the keys to your dealership. Because you didn't validate or because you thought you had the coverage, you kind of shortcut it. You didn't take the time necessary to just use the available technology to handle all of the issues that we've talked about, compliance, fraud, and whatnot, but just validate the insurance with a digital handshake and prove that the transaction is covered in the moment.
Ever wonder how technology could streamline the tedious process of insurance verification in the auto industry? Well, today on Facts Not Feelings, we're joined by Darin, Yeomans, Chief Revenue Officer, and Justin Silvers, Chief Operating Officer from their company Motives and with their product Check My Driver, who are at the forefront of this innovation. They'll share how their breakthrough solution is turning the industry on its head, saving time and enhancing customer trust. You do not want to miss their insider insights on revolutionizing your automotive experience. Darin and Justin, welcome into the show. It's so good to see you both.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and we all met back at NADA. Had a nice. It was Fred that was on the show. It was beautiful and sunshiny. It was such a good experience. And that was your first NADA, correct?
It was, and it was amazing and huge.
Yeah,
huge.
You guys were everywhere.
Yeah.
All right, so let's kick this bad boy off. Darin, the first question is going to go to you. Could you outline the main challenges that auto dealerships face with the current insurance verification process?
Yeah, and so this is a problem. Insurance verification isn't a problem that's specific to just automotive. It's specific across a lot of different industries. Automotive, in this particular example, is one that we're focusing on. But the process is effectively broken and antiquated. It's one of the last things that has not yet evolved. From where it was, say, in the 50s, where you might pull out your ID card and take a photocopy of it and throw it into a deal jacket. That process is effectively the same process it's been, I guess since it was initiated. And, we're living in a digital age. We're at a time where compliance issues and compliance is being pushed upon us by the FTC and by all kinds of, digital evolution, safeguards for your privacy and whatnot. The customer really is at the forefront or is at the center of this, at this intersection of this antiquated process and compliance evolution. And what they're effectively getting is a poor customer experience. You walk into a dealership, you have to pull out your ID card. It might take 30, 45 minutes for you to physically validate the fact that you've got the appropriate insurance to drive off the lot in your new vehicle or whatever the transaction
or assuming they're actually going to look at the insurance. How many times, I'm sure you all can answer this, how many times do you go to a dealership and they either forget to get the license, the car goes off the lot, and they never see the car again?
Yeah. And we should talk about that, because really, if you're not going to do it appropriately, accurately, then why do it at all?
Yeah.
What's the reasoning behind it? So yeah, that's really the impetus for our being. We're happy to be here and talk to you about it. Thanks for having us.
Oh, you're so welcome. And that's I remember back, so I got in the industry about 2009, 2000. So the economy just crashed and I got into the industry. Like a lot of people just kind of fall in this industry. And I remember working for a company and it was the driver's license scanner. And that thing, as people that installed the software, we always kind of laugh when people get the driver's license scanner because it never worked. It never worked. It was supposed to take, save the time and do all this. I'm like, now I'm sure past, 15 years later, I'm sure it's working now. But the time we're like, man, this thing is horrible. We spent the entire day trying to get that thing to work. And I'll also say is that it's great that you're taking a photo, at least you're doing something. But how many times it gets left out, the whole FTC, the GLBA, there's so many things that go into that of how illegal that is. And are we actually paying attention to that? So I love that you brought that up, Darin. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
All right, Justin, next question is going to be over to you. So from an operational standpoint, how does automated insurance verifications integrate into a dealership's existing system?
Yeah. So, there's systems in a technical sense and there's systems just from a processing control standpoint. I'll kind of take it from both perspectives. First, from a process standpoint, the insurance verification process from an automated standpoint can live anywhere that ID and insurance or insurance card is currently being asked. So that can be in the front of the house from sales to the F&I office, all the way through to title and registration, but also on the backside in service, when dealing with loaners or rental cars. And so operationally, it's really fits in anywhere that's currently happening. From a systems perspective, technologically speaking, that could appear inside of the core applications that dealers use today, from their CRM system. So someone's coming in maybe to do a test drive or has already been pre-qualified, or as part of the pre-qualification process, in the spirit of knowing your customer and knowing their situation before they even get there, by digitizing this process and making it frictionless and appear at the right moments in time, you can both save a lot of time, but also create a lot of transparency and awareness digitally, securely, and efficiently for the customers.
And I love that you brought up that it's this process portion of it. And systems can be the people, it can be the actual product, it can be your product, everything in between. So understanding that technology is obviously the backbone is like so crucial, knowing how that works. Can you dive into what makes your solution both reliable and efficient in identifying issues?
Yeah. So that's a really great question. I mean, that sits at the crux of what we do. And so today, Darin talked about the current process being antiquated. Well, to do it properly, you'd actually have to call the insurance company, because one of the fundamental things that we're overcoming here is that document, that what's called the deck page or the policy or the ID card that is presented in current state, actually means anything, that it's actually proof of insurance, when in fact it's a point in time whenever it was printed out. And so what makes us efficient and reliable is the fact that we connect in real time to the insurance companies digitally. We're not asking the customer to prove they have insurance. We're just asking the customer for permission to be able to connect to their insurance company and get this information. And then what we provide back is provided from the insurance company. And so it takes that, the fraud or, the wrong documents, for example, it's not probably uncommon that you went out to your vehicle and went to go pull your ID card. Maybe you're pulled over, maybe you're at the dealership, buying a car, and you have the wrong ID card. It's expired. It's from the insurance company you had last 6 months ago or 2 months ago. All of that goes away, right? So the customer is not frustrated with all this. You just quickly and easily integrate right into the true single source of this information, and within moments, you have the answer back. And then inside our software, we have the algorithms and the intelligence to be able to compare the moment that consumer is in, or that customer person being asked for insurance, and their situation. They're buying or leasing, they're financing, or they're in service, or they're doing a rental, and comparing the requirements of those to the insurance they have, and basically just giving an answer back. So what I call tribal knowledge in the dealership goes away. You don't have to know what they need, do they have, looking and comparing and figuring out, is the new VIN on when I purchased a new vehicle, is it not, do I have the right coverages? Our system just does all of that and just tells you the answer. They're all good, or here's why they're not good and what you need to inform the customer about, which brings everybody together in terms of transparency and understanding without having to think. Takes all that thought out of it, all the time out of the equation. That's,
And
to me, what I call
yeah.
reliability.
I love that. Absolutely love that. So I don't know if I told you all the story now, so I'm going to tell you now if I didn't tell you. So I'm working with a dealership group, and the GM gets a phone call, and he's like, I don't recognize it. It comes up like FBI or something like that. He's like, why is, and he figured it was a prank. He's like, hey, what's going on? Ends up being that they go, hey, we can see that Jane Smith is coming into your store today at 1 p.m. to buy a vehicle from you. He's like, creepy, but okay. All right. Yeah, she is. He goes, yeah. So you're going to be like the 10th dealership that she's hit that is submitting fake information to them. And then she walks up with the car. So sure enough, at 1 p.m., 12:50, she shows up and she's with her kid. And like they've got undercover agents all throughout the dealership, and boom, they like full out tackle her. The poor kid is just like crying. But I was like, this is the stuff of what you were saying about the fraud, is that they were on like I'll call car row. There was just dealership after dealer, and she was just up and down the entire dealership. She hit like every dealership, but it wasn't until that she was at the dealership, this other dealership, that the FBI agents are like, so we're gonna come get you guys. So very crazy. So how do you guys deal with that a lot?
We deal with fraud, and compliance is a big vein of the reason of our existence, right? And the FTC Safeguards Act that came out last year, and all the evolution of privacy and whatnot. Fraud kind of falls in the same area. We're able to tackle a lot of things with the implementation of our solution. We give the customer a great guest experience. We take time off the process, 15, 30 minutes, it could be, to validate the insurance. One thing that we're finding that we're actually able to solve for, ironically, and in a great segue, by the way, Brooke, is synthetic fraud, right? And so people are building IDs, they're building fake identities over some amount of time, and they're going in there actually trying to fraudulently purchase vehicles, just like you said in your story. But because we are actually validating an identification in our process, actually, and then also running it against and looking for an active insurance policy that matches that fraudulent identification, the chances of those two things actually occurring are significantly decreased. It's probably way less likely that you have an active insurance policy on a fraudulent ID because the insurance companies are validating all of the kind of things before they actually issue the policy to begin with. And so that extra layer of protection is something that's just naturally built into our solution, and we're actually able to help mitigate that fraudulent activity along with the compliance at the same time.
Amen. So Darin, I want to take that and go a little bit further. The next question is, how does this technology not just solve operational issues, but also impact the broader auto industry's approach to risk and compliance? Because you talked a little about that. I want you to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so that's a really great question, and it really is. And so we are handling, because we're covering so many topics, with the solution. Like I said, customer experience is the forefront. That's what everybody really thinks about. How can I really make my guest experience that much better? How can I get them in and out of my dealership that much quicker? We talked about compliance, right? The FTC is mandating and coming like a tidal wave, against the world to say that you've got to protect customer information. You've got to deal with a problem that, in the insurance world, and Justin and I are insurance technology executives, originally, and that's where we came from. That's the environment we come from. And so, everybody's, or maybe you've heard the term E&O, errors and omissions. You have to make sure that you are working within the framework that the FTC has provided, to protect this personal information from getting out, from taking a picture on your phone of somebody's ID or whatnot. You have to make sure that you stay away from two really thorny topics, willful noncompliance and willful negligence.
Yep.
And those are two things you never want to see pop up into your dealership. We have somebody beating down the door to say, why aren't you following the rules that safeguard everybody in the process? They do actually eliminate time at the dealership, and they increase the guest experience by X factor. But if you could solve all of those things at once, if you could increase the pleasure of your guests when they're on the showroom floor, if you could eliminate the fraud and compliance issues that are associated with validating the insurance necessary to drive the vehicle away, and if you could deal with fraud all in one go, why wouldn't you do it?
Well, that leads me to my next question here, Mr. Darin. So thanks for teeing it up for me.
Yeah.
So in our industry, we so often see that, I don't want the dinosaurs that don't want to change. And I know that gets thrown a lot, but there's so much resistance to change. That's just, like I said, a common thing throughout our industry. So how do you take that skepticism and tackle it when dealerships they're trying to introduce new technology, but they're like, I'm good. We've always done it this way. And you'll probably die on that hill. A lot of people will, I know. But
a lot of people will. And it's about making the transaction honestly frictionless, right? It really needs to be frictionless or improve upon multiple touch points, like I said in the previous question. And so our technology is offered in both, a standalone version and in an integrated version. And so we can show up in the dealership or in the automobile, landscape wherever it makes the most sense for the situation to show, for the verification to show up. And the process literally takes moments to initiate. A little bit longer on the front end because we actually have to, get the appropriate credentials and authorization to actually validate the insurance. But we're talking about literally moments. And the best thing is that once the dealership has that information, once we have that information in our solution, say you went to buy a car, we verified that you had insurance, whatnot, for a test drive, you come back in later for service, there is no friction. The dealer can run the verification instantaneously on your behalf. They can send you an email and say, hey, you know what? We know you're coming in for service today. We're going to run your insurance verification as soon as you get in, unless anything's changed. And then we'll just hand you the keys when you get in the door. They've done their bit to ensure that they've, met with the compliance issues. They've met to make sure that, they aren't letting somebody drive off the lot in an uninsured vehicle. And they haven't added any friction to the process. In fact, they've removed it altogether, all in one go.
And I go back to what we said at the very beginning here. The number of times I hear horror stories, and I've also worked in dealerships, so I saw those horror stories firsthand of them not getting the insurance information. And someone takes off the lot, and the next thing they know, the car, they cannot find the car. They report it stolen. But at that point, now you're relying on law enforcement and the judicial system to get your vehicle back. When if you would, not that, they can still go dry running, but now at least you have a name, you have a number, assuming it's real.
Yeah.
When we had a car that got completely shot up, and they brought it back like, oh, we never did this. Like, yes, because we sent a car out with bullet holes in it. That's exactly what we did. You're 100% right. And they didn't
Yeah.
get the insurance information beforehand. It's like, what are you
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah. And
Or you
so
take it on your phone, or yeah, it's just
exactly. Yeah, like Justin said, we take the hard work off the plate of a human physically having. We remove the friction there. We take the work of the human out of the loop, the tribal knowledge Justin referred to, and we make that seamless, frictionless. And so nobody has to look and see if the driver, the said driver who was driving the vehicle, is even on the policy. We've heard stories just as recently as last week where some woman came in, picked up a car. She had her son pick up a car. He showed the insurance card which was his parents' insurance card. He actually wasn't listed as a driver. He wrecked it on the way home. And the dealership had to pay for it. And that's just because you
yeah.
didn't validate the insurance the
It's
way you were
one
supposed to.
step. It's not that
That's right.
difficult, and you guys make it so much easier. I mean, come on, seriously.
It's 1 cent. Yeah. The other thing too is a lot of dealers physically, or they'll assume that they've got a garage policy, that covers everything. And the reality is most dealerships are, wildly uninsured given the nature of the litigious environment that we live in today, right? Somebody drives off, they hit a school bus, you lose the keys to your dealership. Because you didn't validate or because you thought you had the coverage, you kind of shortcut it. You didn't take the time necessary to just use the available technology to handle all of the issues that we've talked about, compliance, fraud, and whatnot, but just validate the insurance with a digital handshake and prove that the transaction is covered in the moment.
It sounds so easy. Yet we still struggle with this. All right, Justin, I'm coming to you next. So we're going to switch gears just a little bit here. Let's talk about customer satisfaction. That you guys have talked about the customer experience, but that customer satisfaction plays such a big role in everything that we do, especially in business, obviously. So how does improving insurance verification enhance the customer experience at dealerships?
Yeah, I mean, I see kind of two ways. I mean, one, I think everyone can resonate that whether you're in a rush in the morning to go drop your car off at service and get in your loaner, or you're buying a car and you're sitting in the waiting room for countless hours while things are happening, that it doesn't dawn upon you that this is somewhat brutal. And so I think from a customer experience perspective, time savings and automated steps or things that can be done in advance. People are calling trying to get things done before they arrive. And of course the dealer wants you to get in, but there are many things that they can do that can cut down before. And not only that, qualify that person coming in, or that they're going to come in, or the likelihood they're going to come in, and then actually consummate a deal goes up. So we're seeing ultimately the experience, the relationship. Customer experience to me is all about relationship. And that's a two-way thing. It's not just about how the customer feels. It's about also the dealer and the customer kind of creating an environment where they feel good together. And I think that this, while it sounds silly, that this insurance verification thing, but because it takes 30 minutes and because it saves both of them risk in the equation, whether they realize it or not, and protects the data on both sides and that on both sides, really is what I talk about from a customer experience perspective. And nothing more ruins a relationship than breaking trust. And so, we've seen some publications out there, and there's a lot written on this that says the easiest way to lose trust and to not get a referral is to actually have breach of your customer's data, right?
Yep.
So they can't trust you. If you break trust, they're not coming back, and they're not referring their friends. And so to me, they say, what's the saying? It's easier to sell someone again than to acquire a new customer.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think to me, the ultimate proof of customer satisfaction is people's willingness to repeat and refer. And so we think that this is, again, there's lots of pieces that ultimately add up to it, but leaving this alone and just sitting it the way it is like kind of just a missing component. It's like, how do you connect what I call the digital thread? We're automating this and we're automating that and we're automating this. And in the middle, there's paper and phone calls.
Yeah,
and
it's crazy.
It just seemed crazy. Like, it was like, when we bumped into this, it was like, how is this missed? And anyway, it's
a little nuts. It's one analogy we've used recently to extend on Justin's comment, though, about the paper in the middle is, we had a dealer that was talking to us and he was saying, how do you overcoming objections? Said, how do you, I see that this is fantastic and it's great. And, but we've been doing it this way for so long. And, what if I just have my customer log in and just show me their phone and show me that they've got insurance coverage on the phone? And to Justin's point, well, Would you allow them to print off their credit report and just bring it into the dealership and drive
Yeah.
away in a new car? No, you wouldn't do that. It's silly.
And not only that,
So
like, because I love Credit Karma. I also understand that my credit is not the same on Credit Karma than it is if it's actually pulled correctly from a dealership. There's going to be variability. So to your point about that, yes, we would never allow like, oh, here's a screenshot I altered with all the AI out there. I just altered it, makes you look like I have what I have, when in fact you don't.
yeah,
Brooke,
credit worthiness.
I go back to one fundamental thing. Darin said it before, and I'm like, there's this world where there's a belief that what we're doing is the right thing. It's actually working. Back to that piece of paper actually meant something. So if it doesn't, which it doesn't, because it could have been printed yesterday and canceled, unless you call, you can't know. All you're doing is checking a box. And if your dealership is going to say that checking a box is all that we're willing to do, how customer centric are you really? Because if the customer is canceled, well, then maybe you should let them know, because it's not always fraud.
No.
Sometimes people make
Yeah.
mistakes. They think they are,
Yeah.
and they're driving off on their brand new car. And just like in legal action, everybody gets pulled in. Well, the dealership is going to get pulled in, but so is the customer. And right, and so there's liability and risk, and so they're both parties benefit from this thing. And that's when I sit back and say, like, when both are benefiting from this, it's not like just saying, hey, the dealer benefits, the customer benefits, and all the things we're talking about, but also benefit in, there's a lot of checks. I mean, I had a situation where my jewelry policy from on my wife's jewelry, right, I didn't know for a whole year that it had canceled, because everything else was in coming to my email except for this one. I forgot to check the box, and I thought it was all coming. I'm throwing out the letters in the mail, and guess what? I had no coverage. And
It's
I sit there and I'm like, you just sometimes don't know. So transparency is critical, right? And that transparency builds trust too. I go back to that as like, imagine how helpful. Oh man, I didn't know that. That would build trust that this person is really trying to help me and not, trying to just sell me something.
And to your point, I mean, it literally just happened to us about, I don't know, it was a couple, 2 or 3 months ago, where Illinois has, in Chicago in particular, decided that we're seeing a lot of insurances not cover stuff anymore. So we're going to get our roof redone, and come to find out that the insurance policy, this has been going on for a year. And all of a sudden we go to renew, and they go, oh, by the way, no insurance policy, any major insurance policy cover roof insurance. So we have to completely change your insurance policy. Do you know how many times it took me to like remember, okay, I got to laminate that and go put it in my car? But if I had been pulled over, or if I went in and tried to buy something, that insurance would not, while it says it was good through 2024, it wasn't. We didn't even use it anymore. And I don't remember the dealership group. I think they were in Virginia, it was Virginia or New Jersey, something like that. It was out east, and they've already been sued by the FTC for leaving things out. So this is not something we just talk about and say, oh, this is really important, you should probably do it, we suggest you do it. No, dealership groups are already getting sued over this, and they have for a long time. And with GLBA that's already in full swing, FTC is scrutinizing things so much. So really do take this seriously. So with that, I mean, traditional insurance verification throughout the car buying, servicing, and rental journey is filled with inefficiencies and compliance risks. That's where Check My Driver steps in. With their real-time and automated processes, Check My Driver ensures that your customer coverage is active, adequate, and accurate, saving valuable time and reducing risk. Whether you're selling or leasing cars, providing a loan or a test vehicle, or managing a rental fleet, Check My Driver enhances every interaction, making it smoother and more secure for everyone involved. Discover how Check My Driver can transform your insurance verification process and elevate your customer service. Visit checkmydriver.ai today to learn more. And I will say, when we first got introduced, I was like, once again, I just thought that this existed. I did not know this wasn't already something that people were doing. So it's the service you all are providing it's very necessary to have this. So just thank you for what you guys do and the product you guys have. It's a great product.
We appreciate that. Yeah.
You're very welcome.
We're super excited. Like, this is we couldn't believe the same thing, just like you, when we stumbled across and we're like, as insurance guys, as Darin shared, going and buying a car, and we're just sitting there and it's like, hold on a minute, really? How is this possible? And it was. So
Yeah, it's a
Uh,
great spot to be in for sure. These
I
kids
would
good.
I would agree with that. Very much agree with that. And that's why I got his interviewing Fred and AD. I was like, wait, hold up. This isn't already out there? Like seriously? Like I get pitched a lot of products in a given week. It's like, how is this not even so kudos
Yeah,
to
it's like
finding
the
that.
last thing, the last brick on the evolution stage. Well, at least it's seemingly in the moment. Yeah, but yeah, it seems like why didn't they do this before?
All right, so let's shift our focus back to the importance of compliance in the industry. We've talked quite a bit about this, but Justin, how does your solution help dealerships navigate the complex web of legal and regulatory requirements? And I'll add to that, everything changed with GLB. Not that GLB had been around for a long time, but it just put things on steroids. So how do you help dealerships navigate all this?
Yeah. So, I mean, I try to put it as in my mind as simply as possible because it's can be complicated and there's lots of areas that dealerships have exposure or need to care and concern about that. But specifically with regards to the insurance verification, fundamentally, we're saying get yourself out of the insurance verification business, right? You don't need to do it. So don't collect the documents, right? And don't make the phone calls because what came along with the Safeguards Act is that the definition of what's personally identifiable got expanded to basically include just about everything.
Yeah.
And then it said
Yeah.
further, hey, it's not just about keeping it digitally secure, right? When it's in this computer software and technology landscape, they call it in transit as data is moving around the place, or when it's sitting within a place, right, at rest. And we do all of that. But the other thing that it did was it said also in written form, so now print, and verbal communication. So back to what the dealership's supposed to do is to call because the only way to know if that insurance is actually enforced. So if they're calling, which in a lot of cases they're not,
They're not.
but if they were to call, they now need to be in private quarters, which means now all these verifications have to have private quarters, closed room, nobody else can hear this information. So it becomes very difficult. So in short, what we've done is say, you don't have to do any of that anymore. Send the verification request, have the customer give permission, and the data arrives contained within our system, available for you to see, access at any time for as long as you wish. And that combats this problem by taking that insurance exposure in the verification process, the risk and liability of that data, away from the dealership. We take that over by handling it within the confines of our system and process.
I want to touch on something you just brought up about there, about obviously taking that away from them. Not that we're just taking something off your plate. Remember, I was
Off your plate.
I was at a doctor's, one of my doctors, and they were in the transit of going to another office. So they had these makeshift patient rooms, if you will. And my doctor comes in, and I heard the entire conversation with the patient next to me. And so she
Yeah,
comes in, she goes,
exactly.
I go, so is that normal? She's like, yeah, we need to talk really softly. And it was just this in between where their office hadn't been finished and they're talking, so I'm like, they don't have a lot of options. I get that. But I could see dealers saying to themselves, well, I don't need the product. We can make our own little offices. That while you may feel that way, the fact of the matter is go in that office and have someone stand outside of it and see how much of the conversation you can hear. Because that's, especially let's say it goes badly. If it goes badly and now there are people are screaming at each other, you're going to hear every single word. And it just looks a very, very bad look on your business. So I'm really glad you brought that. I hadn't even thought about that. But I was like, oh, wait, it's a really true thing.
And unfortunately, you might be in a state of willful noncompliance with
Mm-hmm.
the law at that point, right?
But
Yeah.
it gets worse because it not just happens when you're going through the F&I process and you have to fund the deal. So the banks have requirements, but then also I'm about to go into title and registration, and guess what? I can't register a car that's not insured. So you can hit the DMV system and get kicked back that they don't have insurance, or you can check again. What are you going to do? How do you check? Call again, right? So now it's like it's somewhere. It's like, where does the madness have to stop? Back to Darin's point, get hooked up into the system at the consumer, and then you can check whenever you need to at any moment then and in the future, because as we all know that process from the purchase to the registration could be a couple days from now. So not only could the policy have expired, they could have not paid, and it could be canceled. And so there's tons of things that can happen, whether it's infrequent or not. I say that because we've talked to some dealerships like, oh, well, it doesn't happen that frequently. You haven't caught it that frequently.
Or that they
Is the
know
reality.
of is the question there, that they
The
know
blind,
of.
Exactly. And I sit there and say, man, the unknown is what drives me mad is you don't know how big the potential exposure is. And we don't buy, it's like insurance. You don't buy insurance
Mhm.
because I'm expecting my house to burn down. You buy it because it could burn down. And so just because I never had a fire doesn't mean I won't carry homeowners insurance. And so we look at it similarly as insurance folks. We say, look, just like don't wait until something happens. We talk about all the customer experience things, the compliance things, the fraud things. And when you stack all these things up, the sum of the parts to us sit there and say, guys, there's a better way, right? And it's right here in front of you. The opportunities to take advantage of it is now.
And going back to what said, I don't remember which of you two said it, but about how dealerships don't carry enough insurance. That is something I've been preaching that for a very long time, especially when it
Yeah.
comes to to anything. But what you don't want to do is to call your third generation customer like, hey, sorry, Brooke, your information's out on the dark web, and
No.
yeah, we don't have the insurance to cover that. Like
No.
you don't want that. Or hey, by the way, we left your driver's license out, or we left your insurance, whatever it may be. We left some PII out, the personal
Mm.
identifiable information. We left something out with your name, your number, your social security number, and your congratulations, you now have identity theft, and we didn't have enough insurance to cover it. So that's something
Yeah.
that's so vital. And I don't know, I have yet to see a dealership, well, there might be a couple, I take it back, there might be a handful of dealerships that have enough insurance, because the way we're going right now, it is just a matter, I mean, you're having the Pentagon that gets hacked. If the Pentagon gets hacked, you're going to get hacked as well. So it's just, and dealerships by a large don't have the same security as the Pentagon. So all these little things that, yes, the technology is very good and that's great. And it's fantastic. But in house, what are you doing? If you don't have something like this, man, do you understand the amount of legal information that legal liability you have on hand? Like that's just
Mm.
crazy to me. You know, off my little
Yeah.
Brooke, you make
soapbox
And
there.
yeah.
such a good point. As I was an insurance agent, so I used to advise customers in personal and in commercial this conversation all the time. You don't want to have to file a claim. So just saying, well, I have insurance, so I don't, I've got a pool, I have parties in the summer, I invite people over and whatever else. But you know what I want to do? I want to keep an eye on the kids in the pool because I don't want to sit there and say I have liability insurance in case somebody drowns. Like you don't want to have to rely on your insurance and say, oh, I can drive like a maniac because if I crash, I've got insurance. You don't do those things,
No.
right? You what you do is you be responsible and you do what's available. And I think one of the questions you asked before is, about kind of the change in all of this is how is in education, right? Folks got it. This is a fairly new set of capabilities to the industry, and so our biggest challenge is education and helping them understand that there is a better way, that this does exist, and identify those flaws, because a lot of the things we do hear back from those that are not, that that have pushed back or have challenged so far, is these misnomers that they share with us about I have insurance coverage, or I'm not, I am verifying, or it's not really my responsibility, it's the bank's responsibility, or I'm only doing it because this person cares or that person cares. That's not, none of that is true. It's not true. Ultimately, you're sitting there in the midst of the process. You're doing it. I go back to, you're doing it for a reason. And if the only reason is to check the box, then then you're not really even checking the box because you didn't even actually do it, because you didn't call the insurance company. And if you did call the insurance company, you spent 30 minutes. You're wasting people's time. Why not
Willful
just
negligence.
why
Yep.
not just do something better for your customers?
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is the question,
Absolutely.
Justin. That is the question. And I mean, we all could go on stories of things that have happened, whether like Darren, to your point, is it willful or I mean, there's just so much that happens, and this is not a doomsday thing. This is already in motion. So what are you doing to cover your backyard, to cover your ass type of situation? Like it's really, really key that you look at this. And I loved your point of like, well, I don't need home insurance. I don't need it. Nothing's ever going to happen. Like, well, of course you need home insurance. Like, why would you not have home insurance? Like that really
Yeah.
resonates. Or the part where you said, hey, I can just drive a 200 miles an hour because I have insurance. Well, no, I mean, you
Brooke, we do
can.
this.
No.
I think Fred shared this with you when you met with him back at the NADA conference. But we do this in property for renters insurance. It's the same fundamental problem. So to
Mhm.
talk about the movement is afoot, it's not new only in auto insurance. This
No.
same moment of like, hey, consumers are being asked to present insurance,
Mhm.
and we're doing it in some archaic, kind of flawed way, is already happening. And so the intersection between people who buy cars and right now the trend of people renting versus buying and the total population that rents is actually a big overlap. So guess what's going to happen when those renters are going to buy cars? They're going to say, this is crazy. Why doesn't it just work like it does over here? And so the customer expectation, especially as our elder generations age out and the younger generation moves in, the more tech enabled populations move in, they have an expectation that things just work like this instantly. Waiting to make a phone calls. I can make a reservation at a restaurant and never make a single phone call, right?
Mhm.
Same
Yeah.
thing. It's like, so it's happening whether they like it or not. And so we're looking to team with those that are ready to make the change, and then have those help share the good word.
I think it also goes back to how many times the term Amazon experience gets thrown around, especially in our industry. Oh, we have,
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you don't. Like, no, you
Yeah.
don't. But thank you for thinking that you do. And this is what
Yeah.
that's just another stepping stone in that, I would say, building block in to build that house of being the Amazon experience is to make it seamless, to make it
Mhm.
this way, to make that so effortless and so smooth
Yep.
that the consumer doesn't be like, they're not having like, oh, let me pull this. Oh, I already gave this to you. I need to give it to someone else. Oh, Billy
Yes.
Bob was here. I don't know where he put the deal
Yes.
jacket. Can you give this to us again? Man, if that ever happened on Amazon, man, I would no longer be with Amazon. Like, there's the whole Amazon experience is not just online, it's everything. If I want to return something that's seamless, every part of your experience is as seamless as it can be. And to say that we have it, there are very few that I think that actually do have it because we, in our minds, will say that, but it's just not there at all. So
Brooke, I
there's,
watched something at a dealership the other day. Okay, they went and they have a process to get the deck page and ID digitally. So they're,
okay.
whether they're making the call or not, I don't know. But so we'll leave that aside. But they're at least getting the deck page securely digitally, and then they go and they print it out and they put it back in the folder. And we were like, wait a minute,
No.
you just said, okay, I know I got to get this thing safely and securely, and you're like, check. And then I
Yeah.
printed it back out and put it in the
Yeah.
paper. I'm like, you just brought yourself. So
No.
I mean,
So many.
it,
No, and that
it's
the process is broken all over the place. But to your point about the Amazon, we want to make it as frictionless as possible. We want to show up exactly where it makes sense at multiple touch points in the consumer experience, whether it be in service, whether it be on the front end, whether it be out when you go and take a test drive. We want it to be as automatic as we possibly can, and we're working to make sure that we are integrated. Well, first off, we've got two solutions. One is standalone. It operates exceptionally well in a browser all by itself. It doesn't really require any technology at all. It just runs alone. But the second is we've got an easily consumable API that allows it to show up where it makes sense in the process. So you don't have to print it out. You don't have to make it all work great on the front end and then print out a deck page and become instantly non-compliant on the back end. No.
one of the things that we've heard back from dealers that they don't want yet another screen. While we have a standalone system, and that does in some ways represent another screen to go and look and say, hey, I want to see all the verifications that I've run. What we've learned is when you actually look at what the current process is and use the term screen loosely, all the places that I have to look, go, touch, do, whatever, actually, it's way less with our system. It's only one place, but when you map out insurance verification within the dealership, you're actually having many screens, many data entry points, and many processes and many people involved. And we actually streamline that. So on a standalone basis today, we actually make that better for you and actually less places to go than more. And that's, I think, a misnomer when they see it at first. They're like, oh, standalone's another place. Like, no, it's actually less places than you're going to now. It's just, yes, it is another place, but we take away a lot of things along with it. So I
Yeah.
think you're net in a better position, even on a standalone basis.
Agreed. Agreed. So, Darin, I looking forward here. You guys are all obviously looking to always improve. What future enhancements or features is Check My Driver considering to further refine insurance verification?
Yeah, like I said, our existence is twofold. Both in standalone and with a really consumable API. We have taken we've taken the approach that just verification of the insurance data is really not where the problem is. It's the interpretation of all of that data and the business logic for the appropriate transaction, right? So the API that we have, which is available for to all kinds of CRMs and DMS solutions, is probably where we're going to focus most of our effort here in the not too distant future, to make sure that we can actually show up where the solution makes the most sense and as easily and as often as possible, to Justin's point, right?
Amen. And I with that as well, I mean, having that integration, because a lot of people can tout great technology, but it doesn't integrate to any of their systems. So how good is like technology if it's not integrating? So that I always am like always happy to hear that that is in the mix there. So let's shift the conversation just a little bit here. And when it comes to the competition is obviously fierce in the auto industry. So how can dealers leverage your technology as a unique selling point? And I'll go Darin, but Justin, obviously you can add on this as well.
Yeah, again, we've said this 100 times if we've said it once, but frictionless experiences in the dealership are what we want to facilitate, right? That's what we want to facilitate. There's a whole lot of other things that we're accommodating for that are just bonuses, right? But really, frictionless experiences in the dealership, I think, are what resonate with most people most solidly. And from a competitive perspective, if you can check all of the other boxes and provide your customer a frictionless experience to do all the things that Justin talked about enhancing your customer's experience, that's how you're going to win the game. And I think that I heard it, Nada, at the close of Nada. It might have been from you, actually. I'm not sure, Brooke. Tell me if this one resonates. But
Maybe.
I thought I heard someone say that 2004 is the year of utilizing customers' data to enhance their experience in the dealership environment. Somebody said that.
It may have been there.
Yeah,
I don't know what you guys saw me when there was still sunshine out. So there
yeah,
were
and it
30
could,
interviews that day. So I don't remember a lot about that day.
yeah, it could, and that couldn't be more true, with us. That couldn't be more true. We're adding so much value to the customer's experience with respect to ensuring they've got the right coverage for the vehicle. A lot of things that an agent, would do for someone, and doing it on behalf of the dealership, really, all of those verifications have a lot of value. We're not trying to replace that agent relationship, and that's a good actually distinction. We can go down that rabbit hole too. But enhancing the customer's experience is paramount, and I think that gives dealers a wicked advantage over their competitors that are going to be late to embrace the change or give me some kind of feedback that says, well, I can just look at my customer's phone and verify that they have insurance.
No,
Okay.
no, please don't.
You
Let's
can do
stop.
that a few times if you really want, but
You're setting yourself up for a lawsuit if that's the case.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
Justin, I want to swing back over to you before we wrap up here. We've talked a lot about protecting the customer data, protecting customer data, and all of the legal portion of it. How do you all actually protect the customer data?
Yeah. So we take security with like the utmost priority in our business. So from early days, while we are a young company, from the get-go, we realized that security is paramount. So we started down a journey to make sure that we were embarking on the highest levels of security and encryption of our customers' data through and through, end to end. And then on top of that, we've gone through and we've already achieved our SOC 2 compliance, which is effectively, for those who don't know, one of those controls that monitor that you have. So it's really an audit of the controls, which is people, process, to end technology, to make sure that your organization is following all of those processes that you put in place, not just at our customers or for our consumers, but also our own employees, that people can't have access to things that they shouldn't have, and that no matter where that data appears at any point, place, and time, that it cannot be stolen or hacked into or whatever else. And so we're at the forefront of that, and we monitor that regularly.
Good answer. It's always I love talking. I say that tongue in cheek. Love talking to companies. They're like, "Oh yeah, we do all the status security." I'm like, "That's great because you literally just sent me an email that has PII riddle in it." But yeah, you guys definitely go ahead and say that you actually do that. So when you actually can talk to someone and say, "Okay, they do this. Here is how they're protecting it." To me, that was so. Looking through the questions, like I love that question. I love all of them. I made them up, so of course I'm gonna love them. But I like that one in particular because like that's at the end of the day, how do you actually protect it? And so many companies will say that they do and they don't. And it's not just software companies, we're businesses in general. I mean, once again, if I could need to keep an entire folder of all the data breaches that have happened at XYZ company. So I love that one. And Justin, we'll round it out with you here for a hot second. Well, actually, we'll go to both of you. We'll start with Darin and go up to Justin here. If there's one takeaway or one thing that we haven't covered that the audience needs to know, what is it going to be?
Oh gosh, there's so much more we could talk about. I don't even know where to begin. I
Let's
don't know.
start with
You know,
one.
every time we engage a dealer prospect or somebody in the auto community, about what we're doing and how we're doing it, it's a whole Easter egg basket. Since Easter just passed, I'm thinking about that. So it's a whole basket full of goodies that people are thinking. If it's not compliance, it's fraud. If it's not customer experience, it's making sure that you're in line, with the FTC regulations, and it's just one thing or the other. Gosh, I don't know. I think we've kind of covered it, Justin.
Justin, up to you then, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no pressure. No, but to me, at the end, at the end of the day, I think that we're here to ultimately help auto dealers, and I would say one of the key takeaways are that we are super, super intellectually curious folks, and we're here to learn. We know that all dealerships, as Darin's talking about, have view things very, very differently, and we still don't know everything. We don't purport to know everything. So what I would say out to the dealer community is if this is something that is, that you didn't know you have a problem and you want to talk about how you view it, we'd love to engage in those kind of conversations,
Yeah.
because Darin said we're
Absolutely.
learning. I think what Darin was getting at is we're learning every step of the way. What we
We
know
really
is
are.
insurance verification, and we've learned a lot. We know that our solution is right for the dealers, but how you can execute and drive the change management, that's probably the key thing, is that there is a change management thing. How you get from here to there is going to be kind of at the intersection of your people, your process, your technology, your leadership, and their mindset on this. And so for us, our job is to help work with you to figure out how you can, bridge from your current state to where to your future state, at the intersection of our solution. So that would be my takeaway: is there doesn't have to be a
Well
right
said.
answer. Have a conversation with us, and we'll figure it out together.
Yeah,
I
well
like
said.
it.
We're covering so much, so many topics, and we can go on for days, but that was well said, Justin. Good. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
See, it was all planned that way. We're going to go Darin, then up to Justin. So it was all planned that way, obviously. All right, Darin and Justin, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, but we are at that point of the show where we are going to jump in to the lightning round with Darin and Justin. So, Justin, you were just talking. So, I'm going to start with you first. We're going to put up your nice little QR code here. For those that are watching, you can see his QR code a little bit further down from my faces right now. For those that are listening in podcast land, how can they get in touch with you, Justin?
Yeah. Well, there's multiple ways in the digital age to get in touch with me. The easiest way is to come directly to my email, of course, at jsilver@motives.com. You can hit the link, which will connect with me directly to LinkedIn. There's forms on our website as well. So there's multiple ways to reach out and touch base.
Awesome. Darin, shocker, the questions come to you as well. So once again, everyone, you can scan or click, whatever you're doing, the QR code below. But for those that are listening in a podcast land, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah. So yeah, please do visit motives, MODIVES.com. Check my driver.ai. Of course, you can click on the link and you can get me at Yeomans, YEOMANS at motives.com.
Fantastic. All right. So, Darin, we're going to stay with you. Name of the show is Facts, Not Feelings. How are you distinguishing facts from feelings, either it can be in personal life or in your professional life?
Oh goodness, facts. Yeah. Well, those are what I deal in, I suppose. Feelings is all of my teenage kids. Yeah.
Good answer.
And I get a lot of those in the house. So I have an affinity towards facts because they just they just are what they are.
I agree. All right, Justin, up to you. Same
Same
question.
question?
Same
Oh,
question.
wow. I think facts are here and feelings come from here. That's how I distinguish the two.
I like it. Justin, we'll stay with you. What is one thing that probably a lot of people wouldn't know about you?
Oh, wow. Well, we were shared that we're in terms of, well, I think a lot of people don't know that I am a scuba diver. I love the ocean, and what fascinates me a ton about it and why is because there's so much more that we don't know. There's so much more unexplored and unknown, back that intellectual curiosity about what's down there than we know about up here. And that just drives me bananas. And I just want to see it all. So, yeah.
I love that answer. That's one on my bucket. Like, unfortunately, I won't be able to do it, but scuba diving. I want to be a certified scuba diver, and I wanted to jump out of an airplane. And then I had a not to get too gross in here, a corneal transplant of my cornea took off, blah blah, in the eyeball. And I asked my surgeon, I was like, "So, are we still cool if I go jump out of a plane?" He's like, "No, no." I'm like, "What about scuba diving?" He's like, "No." And let me just get it off the list, Brooke. No wrestling alligators, no wrestling with polar bears. I was like, "Man, these are the things I
Um,
wanted to check off." So anytime I hear someone's a scuba diver, I'm like, oh, I want to be a
yeah.
scuba diver. So that's
Places
awesome.
to go snorkeling and see wonders, and if you're able to do that, that's what I would recommend.
Do a lot of snorkeling. Anytime I'm at the clear blue ocean, which I love, that's like my vacay is always to get somewhere there's sandy beaches and clear oceans, and that's I'm like, I just want to snorkel because that's the most I can do right now. So no, yeah, I love that. All right, Darin, same question to you. What's something that most people wouldn't know about you?
I studied law actually when I was in college. I was going to go actually be a lawyer, and then I decided against it. But probably people wouldn't realize that I'm kind of high on philosophy and all those kinds of topics. I find them exceptionally interesting. I know it's really boring and weird, but philosophy is fun. I love the concept and the topics and the discussion and whatnot. So yeah, I'm a dork in that way.
Well, it's a good thing you got into what you're getting into now because that kind of
Yeah,
just goes hand in hand. I love that. All right, let's
yeah.
round it out with, and Darin, we'll start with you and then just up to you. If you can have one superpower, what's it going to be? Darin, what's your answer?
Oh, that's easy. That's so easy. Yeah, I do it every night when I sleep. I fly. Of course, and I've heard some people say, gosh, I remember I had that dream where I was flying. I'm telling you, I do it all the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, all the time. And I don't know if it's like I consciously will myself into it, but I find myself shooting all over the place,
No
flying
way.
to the pool or whatever.
I had a guest
So,
on that answered
yeah,
flying, and,
yeah.
and the guest goes, Brooke, I actually watch movies about flying before I go to bed so I can have flying dreams. I was like,
Because it's so
yeah,
fun. Because it's so fun. You actually, it's like you're flying. You're like, in the Matrix. You're doing it.
right? Seriously. All right,
Yeah.
Justin, up to you. What's your superpower?
Well, I I actually thought lots about this question. I had no idea you were going to ask it, but I thought lots about this question for other reasons. But what I'm going to go with thematically today, because there's a bunch of superpowers that I'm fairly keen on. But in the spirit of my other answer, I would say the ability to hold my breath
Ooh.
forever.
Oh, you want to be Aquaman?
I was just gonna say, so we
I
got
want to be
Aquaman over
Aquaman.
here, we got Neo
I
over
want to be
here, so
I want to be Aquaman. Yeah. So I go down. So well, on both sides of the atmospheric pressure, right?
yeah.
Darin will be up in the sky and I'll be down low. I want to go as low down as Darin wants to fly up high.
Okay, there
Or
you
high.
go. We got some oh my gosh, deep sea diving. There we go. There you go. Just
Deep sea diving.
right.
Absolutely. Think about it. Jules Verne, right?
Yep. Exactly. That's kind of where I was going. So, all right. Well,
Exactly.
Darin and Justin, it has been such a pleasure having the show. Thank you for not only shedding your knowledge on this incredibly important issue, but also just being on the show. I mean, this is something that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, and it is such an incredible, or sorry, it's such an important topic. So just thank you for being a part of it. And as always, everyone, if you haven't had a chance to go get in touch with these human beings or to check out Check My Driver, go do it. You've seen the QR code, you've seen all that. It's also obviously in the show notes as well, and just about anywhere on social media. Go get in touch with these gentlemen. And with that, everyone, you all know the drill. Find a way to serve today. I do not care if it is a kind smile, if it is opening a car door, maybe it's just doing a little bit of service of somehow to your neighbor, your coworker, a family member. Just do something today to better someone's life and make the joy in their life just a little bit more. With that, everyone, we'll see everybody next week.